Hey!
Hey!
Oh, good morning.
Good morning! Or perhaps in Denmark, it's more or less good afternoon because it's 2:30 p.m. So.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, right? Because
Yes,
we are truly global today. Brian, where are you from?
I'm from Denmark. It's so nice to be back in this restream, and I see a lot of well-known faces on the chat already. So I like it.
Yeah, it's so good to see everybody. We've got Aaron, Sanjay. Where did I just saw someone showed up in stream. Where did they go? From Nigeria. Holy cow, we are
Nigeria, wow!
truly.
Oh, and Anthony's here. Oh, nice.
Yeah, holy cow. Where is everybody from? Let's post where you're coming from today. Let's see how global of a stream we can really and truly be today.
Exactly. It could be amazing to have from all time zones, right?
Yeah. That's just incredible. We got a whole bunch of people here.
Yeah.
We're going to be diving into like an incredible topic today. But before we do that, I just want to take a moment to be just like very honest with Brian and for everybody on the stream. I just want to say how grateful I am that you guys all come and be part of this community and that we talk together and we work through these common problems.
Yes.
There's a lot of professions out there, and there's a lot of people out there that are not as kind and welcoming and helpful to the community. And I just am very appreciative that everybody here works together as a global community to take on these challenges. So thank you guys so much for being part of this stream and being part of this conversation. So I don't know. That was on my head this morning. I wanted to do that. So it's good to see
amazing. It's amazing. I like it.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you that this community is, I haven't been to many communities, but the data community around the world is perhaps the most embracing people I've ever met.
Yeah, and holy cow, look at this. We've got North Carolina, Wisconsin, Anthony. Anthony's over in England. I'm 90% sure. We got Madison. We got Bangladesh. Holy cow. India. Just all over the Dallas, Fort Worth. Hey, Chris, I'm going to be down. I'm flying in and out of Dallas. This is the craziest thing. I'm flying into Dallas next week on Tuesday for a 1-hour meeting. We land. We drive from the airport. I present. I get done presenting. I have to immediately get back into an Uber back to the airport and then fly back home. It's a crazy thing.
So you have 3 hours of transport for a 1-hour meeting. It's perfect.
Oh, it's like a 2-hour flight there. So it's like
it's 5 hours transport.
Yeah, 5 hours in and out. So it's a long day for a 1-hour meeting, but it's because we're in this incredible community, right?
It's perfect.
Yeah. Farmville. Okay, Andy, I don't know if Farmville is an actual place or just a video game. Brian, do you know if Farmville is that a location? I'm online here.
I don't know. It is a game. I know the game.
Yeah. Oh, good deal. Oh, and Christina, you're joining us. Are you in a Caribou coffee shop or have you actually made it to SQL Saturday? So, next time you'll treat me to lunch. Yeah, well, I'll definitely have to take you up on that. Hey, but before we dive into all of these things, I want to take a second to first introduce Brian. Well, that didn't work. Where'd my button go? There we go. Brian, while you're giving your introduction, I want to run through these different things. So you want to tell everybody about yourself, where you're from?
Sure, thank you. Yes, it's so nice to be back. My name is Brian. I'm from Denmark. I'm a data platform MVP. I focus on Fabric as a total, of course, but mainly on real-time intelligence. And I've been in the data community for, 7 years now and working with data for the past 25 years. I travel the world speaking on conferences, on stages, wherever I can. And I also do a bit of blogging. And I just saw that you pulled up my blog.
Yes.
decode.bi, only one E, where you can read everything about real-time intelligence and how to get started. There's a lot of articles there, and just the latest one is from this week, the fork operator inside the Kusto query language. That's amazing. It actually builds up outputs where you can get several outputs in the same command rather than executing 2 commands or 3 commands to get 3 outputs. There's one problem because only one application accepts more than 1 output. So yeah, you do the math. And then quite recently, in the past 6 or 7 months, I've been building a reference guide for the Kusto query language. So if you have any problems writing a Kusto query language query set, then kql.how is the place to go. This contains everything you need to know around the Kusto query language. I already got some feedback from Anthony. Thank you, Anthony. And those duplicate entries are now gone. Anthony, I hope that you will find it more clean now. Thank you. But you can search for everything here you need, or you can just browse your way through it. Right now, it's in beta because some internal links are not working. I don't know if everything is always in beta, but yeah. It's right now it's in beta because I'm still doing some debugging on that, and I really would love feedback if people find things that are not working or things that are strange. Please write them to me. I'll be glad to get them.
Yeah. So, Brian, you are the Kusto king. We'll be looking for. Save. There we go. Follow Brian on the links. I posted them in the chat. For those of you who can't see the chat, they're going on the ticker down below. So we'll be getting into that and talking through all that stuff. So excited to have you here, Brian. This is honestly a great conversation. This all like kind of stemmed from a blog post that you shared earlier this week, and before we pull that up, do you want to give us a little background on where this came from? And
sure.
Yeah.
I work as a consultant and has done so for the past 12 years or so, and I have a lot of client discussions around the new functionalities, new technology, new things that are happening in the data world. One of those things is that we have a lot of I work at a company called IntelliShore here in Denmark, and we do a lot of strategic implementations and also a lot of data platform implementations. And our clients, we are not married to Microsoft, so we both implement Snowflake and Fabric and Databricks and dbt and you name it, we have it. Mm-hmm. And our clients, they are beginning to have an interest in, hey, we have Databricks as our full-blown backend engine where we do all the data wrangling, data mapping, data something. But our end users are now asking, hey, can we get data in Fabric? Because we would like to build our semantic models, reporting, visualizations, all that kind of stuff in Fabric. So how can we marry those two together? And those discussions has been going on for almost since Fabric was released. And in the past, I can't remember when it was released, this feature that we're going to talk about today, but when the mirroring from Databricks to Fabric was announced and released, that discussion was way not easier, but perhaps more easy to understand for the organization on what's actually going on.
Right.
But yeah, just like you and I, we talked about before we started, then it's easy peasy to enable, but it's always a lot of meetings to decide. So.
Right. And I think we've always been anticipating this conversation from the announcement of Fabric and the first hey, this is what the infrastructure is, right? With all the files being in Delta file and all the files being in OneLake and all of them this whole open source mentality directly aligns with the whole Databricks architecture, because that's what Databricks is, right? They store everything in Delta. It's everything Python for population and consumption, right? So there's always going to be, how do we do the integrations? But right now we've really got three options, and that's what your article really gets into, which was three ways to marry Databricks and Fabric, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because before the last option came, we had two different other options. The first of all, we have the shortcuts,
Yep.
where we can just connect using a shortcut from one link. We can connect to the underlying storage account from the Unity catalog or just from Databricks. But there is some problems with that, as I see it. Perhaps you have other ideas also, but at least the most obvious problem is we don't get the table names and the metadata with that. So the Unity catalog keeps metadata internally and handles the storage account in another way. So the storage account only consists of names like hashes and other hashes and then another hash, and you can't decode what the table name and table name and object names are. So that's one option to do it, and perhaps the most go-to option, because when data is available in Databricks, it's also available in Fabric. We don't have to move it,
Right.
because you read it when you need it, right?
Yeah.
So that's one option, but it has some pros and cons. The first off is the naming convention. It's not being handed over from Databricks to Fabric when using the shortcut. You have to do that yourself.
Well, and that's not automated, right? You have to. Don't you have to tag and like manually do that? When I was working on it, I don't recall being able to script that, and it was a very manual process. So
yeah, I haven't been working with the API that long for the past weeks here, so I don't know if there's an API for it now. I could imagine there is. I don't know. But if there's not an API, you have to do it with a keyboard and do it manually. Every table, every object you are shortcutting, you have to type it yourself. So.
Yeah, and I'll say one of the other big challenges hang on. Well, the thing I agree with you on, like, hey, the data doesn't move, right? It's there, right? So the shortcut has occurred. And so the purity in me, I like the simplicity of that. I like that we are not caching anything new. We're not creating any new like transfers. It's there. It's synced. It's, if there is a cache that's managed by the service, I don't have to touch it, right? I like that side of it. I'm challenged by the security on this because the integration you do with the shortcuts doesn't respect a security pass-through. So you basically have to redefine security, right?
Yeah, exactly, and that is perhaps the biggest no-go for the shortcut, because to be able to read the data using the shortcut, as of what I know, then you can't impersonate the reader. The reader is using some arbitrary service account to read that data from Databricks, and that has to have access to all the data. Right. So you have to implement your security model in the semantic model on Power BI or wherever.
Right. Today.
To what I know, yes. Perhaps someone has made a hack, I don't know, but the official way is you can't.
Yep. And then you mentioned in here in your blog, you had another issue, which was new tables don't get auto mapped in. You have to. It's manually creation every single time, and
every single object you have to do the shortcut manually. What I would love from the shortcut service was to just have a tick mark saying, "Do you want to add future tables? Yes, please." And then I would actually be quite fine if the table name was just the hash, because then I can access the data even though the hash name is just something, and then later on I could rename it.
Yeah. You could obscure it. You could whatever. Yeah. You could find a programmatic way to handle it after that fact.
And I could work with it within a few seconds after the data was handed over by Databricks to the storage account. That would be amazing for me. So.
Yeah, that would be. Yeah, Anthony, that brings out a good question. Like, hey, sounds like a lot of work and frustration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's a question, you see.
Yeah, we've got a question here from Donald. So why not just use Fabric instead of Databricks Unity Catalog?
Oh, you are actually jumping right into the next option from my blog post, I guess.
Yeah.
Because the second one was perhaps that's the middle way of this question from Donald, is that we can actually get Databricks to write directly to OneLake.
Yep.
It is a part of the official Microsoft documentation that OneLake is open for everyone. So if you want to write to OneLake, you are open, you are capable of doing that, and you can actually get Databricks to write data directly to OneLake using the integration engine that comes with Databricks. But there are also what you get out of that is the performance in delivery from Databricks to Fabric is more or less the best you can get, because Databricks is writing directly to Fabric. So when data is written in the, let's say you stage the gold layer in your medallion architecture in Fabric, then that gold layer is ready in Fabric when the data has been processed. You don't have to wait for it. It's just there. And then if you're using the direct lake condition in Power BI or your semantic models, then you don't have to wait. It's just there.
Sure.
And there are some drawbacks, because you can't inherit the internal Databricks optimizations on the Parquet files.
Mm-hmm.
You are enforced to the way that Fabric and OneLake handles Parquet files and whatever you call it, V order, C order optimization, something. You have to just take what you get from OneDrive. Sorry, from OneLake. So
no, and you're right, and that's kind of a bit of a challenge, right? But I think Mim's got a great point here, and I think this applies to both, because the security again doesn't persist through from the Databricks side, even when you write into Fabric, right? Like if you're defining security on Databricks inside Databricks, that security doesn't natively go into OneLake, right?
Sure.
We called that out as a deal breaker, and I've seen companies that said, "Hey, that's a no-go." Mim is saying, "I don't see this as a problem. This is what we've been doing for many years. You import the data into Power BI, manage the security there, and in fact, in many ways, that does make sense. When you're building out analytics, you have access to all the data. You see all of the stuff. You define your row level security inside of your semantic model. You do your import there." What is your response to that comment, Brian? And specifically, what is the response that you think your clients would have when you've had this type of conversation, when we've showed this type of thing off?
I am unsure if this comment is for the for the shortcut or the write directly to OneLake. Because if it's the shortcut, then from my understanding, you can't make security on individual objects using a shortcut.
Correct.
In OneLake right now, we have the possibility to do security on folders. So if you're storing, if you're segmenting your Databricks data in business areas, let's say finance, HR, or logistics, then you save that data in folders directly in OneLake. You can have security based on that data. So people in HR can only access HR, and people in logistics can't access HR data. So with the option of shortcut, you open up Pandora's box for all the data in the world. If they have access to the workspace, they have access to the data. But if you have write to OneLake from Databricks, then you can do the folder security directly in OneLake, saying that's quite fine, you have access to the workspace, but I will narrow down the access policies on this folder so you can't access this table.
Yep.
So I totally get the comment here that for 10 years or more, I've been working with this because I'm the data engineer, I have access to all the data. Sure, of course you have, we all have. But if you're trying to, and this is a dangerous word to say on a live stream, but I'll say it anyway, if you're trying to democratize your data, then you also want to expose that data outside of semantic models to the business for them to be able to make their own insights on data outside of the semantic model in some way or another.
I like that. That's a good point and a good response. I guess as I think about that solution methodology that you're talking about, that you would separate out by your folders, which would basically be your workspaces, right? And in your workspaces, you'd have different levels of security that be defined there. So Databricks could write into those different things to have the security.
Yes.
Could you not do the same thing with shortcuts? And
but then you have to separate your shortcuts by workspace.
You're separating your folders by workspace.
Yeah, but you can also separate your folders inside the folders in a workspace. So you can have folder level security in a workspace. Not the folders in a workspace, you have the folder in Fabric, but the folders on OneLake.
Right.
We have folder security in OneLake right now. I think it's in public preview. We have folder security in OneLake where we can define access controls based on the folder.
Yeah, so I like the concept. I think. Am
I mistaken here?
Well, I am the challenge I would get from a client is, hey, I've got a very sophisticated data security model already established inside of Databricks. I can't easily, or I can't programmatically even replicate it with shortcuts or even the folder methodology, unless I have a simple method like you're describing, where it's like broken out by these like very big blocks for consumption, right? So I think that's a current challenge that we're still still working through as part of this, right? Is how do we do that security? And but I think that's a broader challenge in and of itself.
Yeah, sure. But I just found the documentation from Microsoft. There is I think it's called data access control model. Sorry, data access control model in OneLake, where you can define folder security. So outside of the workspace, outside of the UI, you can define access to folders on OneLake. So if you store your tables in different folders, then you can have access controls based on those folders. Not in the workspace, but on the underlying OneLake storage.
Yep. Okay. All right. Cool. Then I'm wrong, or else I was.
It's fine.
I was referring back to and thinking that was in private preview, and I wasn't going to talk about it.
It's a problem. It's documented on Microsoft.
Okay. Good. I'll say I started to see so much private preview stuff about 8 months ago that I suddenly became like, I don't know what's public or not, and so I just stopped talking about all sorts of things, and I was just like, so good, that's public.
Yeah.
Great.
So back to the comment, I totally get that data engineers, data architects, something that are building the platform, they have access to everything, and that has been working for the past many years. But when we have, I also think the documentation talks about in preview right now that we have shortcut security. So when that is being moved to GA, then we have other options to handle that. Yes.
Correct. Yep. And then that leads us to our third method of syncing.
And I think I put a big red stamp on this because this is my recommended way of doing this.
Yep.
It's just the mirror from the Unity catalog to OneLake. It's a few clicks with a mouse, and then you're good to go.
Yep.
Hang on. I have something in my throat, sorry. The thing is that the UI from Fabric is quite easy to work with because you just say, hey, give me a new mirror from mirror from Databricks, and then you type in your Databricks cluster address, URL, something. And then if you have read the documentation and figured out you need to enable those two specific things in Databricks, if you have done that, then things will by magic begin to move into Fabric in a mirrored way. And the mirror is what it is. It is a mirror. So when data is deleted in Databricks, it's also deleted in Fabric. When data is added in Databricks, it's also added in Fabric. And yes, when we also add new tables and objects in Databricks, we can tick mark that in Fabric and say, hey, I want new objects to be moved, mirrored into Fabric. So, and we get the table names built in. We don't have to do anything. It just works.
I love this. In fact, if you don't mind, I'm going to just hop over and show people how easy this is to actually achieve.
Sure.
Right?
I love live demos.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to do it live here. So I've already got it set up, so I know it works. But I'm going to show you how complex this is. Right? So now I don't do Databricks mirroring all the time, so it's not one of my favorite items. So I go in to all items. I select the Databricks mirroring. Now, I've already established a connection. Now, I can define a new connection, and that's where I'd have to know what that URL is. But once you've set it up, you just simply go in with your connection over to your Databricks, click on Connect, then you choose your Unity catalog. I believe this is my Unity catalog. Yep. And then all I have to do is define which schema I'm going to be syncing in. And I can even define, like I could say, hey, I just want to sync in dim account, dim geography, and dim product into this environment. This, while this is currently does not bring the security along with it, this would be one way you could establish that same type of security that we were talking about by workspace, right?
Yes. There is a comment though on the Databricks side. You need to enable 2 APIs on Databricks. I can't remember the names, but it is in the documentation. And you can only mirror managed tables. There are other options to store data in Databricks, like, I don't know, live tables and all of those kind of stuff, but you can only mirror managed tables.
Wow.
Josh
has a question. What's that?
I was just curious if we could still get to see the tick mark of add future elements to the link.
Oh, sorry. Manage catalog. Yeah, automatically sync future catalog changes from the selected schema.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. So I didn't select a schema. I selected objects.
Yeah, but if you select an entire schema, then future objects will be mirrored automatically. That's amazing.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. I am 95% sure. If I haven't, and I just did, dim customer account, dim customer geography. If I have these selected and I've selected this, if there's schema changes in the tables, I'll still get them. If I haven't, I don't get the schema changes in the tables.
Yes, you'll get schema tables on the selected tables. And if you select the entire database schema, you also get future tables.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Awesome. And look, this is as easy as it is, right? I click on apply.
It's just next finish, and then you're good to go.
Yep. And now we went from having just the 3 tables in there to having everything that was in the schema.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a small comment here when people go home and try this on their own tenant. Please have patience, because it looks like the UI that the data's there already, but it has to read the data from Databricks and store it in one lake before you have access to it. So sometimes if you select the table from the view we just saw, you won't get any data because the tables are only created; they are not yet loaded with data.
Oh, look at that! Yeah, if I go back.
Yeah,
tables
it takes a minute or so. The preview will just load forever, and then you'll get an error because you don't have any data. But don't be frightened; it will eventually happen. But the first initial load, when you do the Databricks mirror to Fabric, it will take some time because it has to move the data from the network in Databricks into the network in Fabric and store it in one day. So,
yeah, but once it's over, it's just as snappy, right?
Yeah. because now it's local Delta Parquet files in one lake handled by Fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And Fabric can do all the caching, it can do all the V-ordering, it can do all the stuff that Fabric does on the data for us.
It does
And yes, we have
V-ordering?
the signal disk endpoint. Yeah.
Really?
Sorry, Chris. Sorry.
It does the V-ordering on it?
No, it does that for us. I'm just trying. So it does the optimization for us.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. That's flipping fantastic. This is truly awesome. And look how easy it was, right? Like,
it's very, very easy.
And so we're at the halfway mark. We've talked about the 3 ways. We've shown you how easy this is, right?
Yeah.
But this isn't the difficult part of it. The technology is easy, right?
Technology is easy, and the setup is what you just saw from Chris. It's perhaps a minute more because you have to type in your cluster address.
Yeah.
And then you're good to go. What I see of the difficult part here is for the organization to, first of all, understand what's happening. I think I saw a question around what about costs. We can touch upon that later on. But what about security? What about data integration from Databricks? What about reading from Fabric? What about, they have questions on questions and questions on questions. So I think what I'm experiencing right now is that our clients have, perhaps it's just a curiosity / uncertainty around what's happening with my data when I do this. Can I trust the integration from Databricks to Fabric? Can I trust the network? Can I trust the security part? What about the governance and data breach and all that kind of stuff? So that is what we are discussing with our clients right now. And it takes perhaps 15 minutes to set up, but you gave me some time span, and what I have experienced is that I'm currently in a dialogue with a client, and we are on week 2 of discussing this.
Yeah. And I'll say we're having the exact same conversation. The technology part isn't difficult. It's that human integration point. And how do we do this? Okay. Because someone said, hey, like, and I just saw a comment in chat about, hey, we tried to go all from Databricks over to Fabric, and we're having issues with that. Like, okay,
of course you have.
I believe that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that makes sense. In fact, I think our recommendation that we have for people is if you have a 5 to 10 year mature Databricks environment, you definitely should keep that 5 to 10 year mature Databricks environment and look at the integration, right? And I think that, like, people like to keep things simple, right? And I think that's so critical. We don't want anything more complex than it needs to be. But Databricks has a decade of development under its belt, and companies running, production workloads in. You've got all sorts of monitoring, ServiceNow tickets, integrations. The number of integration points and things that you have working on any system that's been around for 5 to 10 years is massive in its nature.
Yes, it is.
And that's why I honestly, I think this Databricks and Fabric is the ideal solution right now for lots of companies, right? Because you get that hardened, which one was I doing? Databricks. You got the hardened Databricks platform that you've got. Now you're just talking about, like, how do you allow enablement on top of that with like a managed consumption, right?
Exactly.
One of our big clients or challenges our client was having, why they were looking at this, is their Databricks costs for self-exploration went through the roof, right?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Right. Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, because if you open up Databricks for every end user, business user to just, hey, go nuts, then of course your cost will explode because the compute will just be built to you, whatever the users are doing. And if you don't have any good governance and any good user perception of what's happening behind the scenes, then they will just misuse it, but they will use it to explore, to understand, to perhaps also do not so effective stuff as they could, but they will do stuff, and then of course the compute will follow.
Right.
So
I had a data science. God bless them. I'm not going to name the person because they had a good intention in mind, but they had their Databricks notebook up and they wrote a script that dynamically mashed up every table versus every other table to create a superset and try to run regressions on top of it to find insights. Because, that's what
of
a data
course,
science,
why not?
why wouldn't a data science do that? Right.
Yeah,
And holy cow, was that an expensive little experiment?
it is. But if you look at it in the conjunction with Fabric, then you have other means and capabilities of enabling that at a data science person. Because let's take the example that now we have mirrored data into Fabric from Databricks, and Databricks is handled by the data engineers and the data team. That's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That just works. Now we can contain the cost in Fabric if we buy let's just say an F8 or something, and give that to the data scientists saying, hey, go nuts on this capacity, because we now know that you are limited to the capacity size plus the boosting, but you are limited to the capacity size. Just go nuts, because the bill will just still be I can't remember the cost, $2,000 or something, will still be the same every month no matter what you do. And yes, at some point, if you are trying to do a dynamic lookup of all tables, creating a superset, and then build a machine learning model on top of that, at day 2 you will be out of capacity, but then you will learn.
Right. And so I think there's a solid play in having both tools right now, especially because there's a huge chunk of the planet that doesn't know Python or is afraid of Python, or just they've been working in SQL for 25 plus years and notebooks. They don't want to do it, right? Good or bad, they don't want to, right?
Exactly.
And this gives a great opportunity for that self exploration, that self like research and whatnot inside of a Power BI space.
Exactly. And I want to add here that I think you mentioned it, Chris, that if you have an existing Databricks setup and your end users are asking for Fabric, don't plan a full migration from Databricks to Fabric, because whatever you have in Databricks, that works. That's quite perfect. But if you are new to the data world and want to create a new data platform, compare Databricks and Fabric to capacities, functionalities, capabilities, all the kind of stuff, and make an acknowledged decision based on facts and on business needs. What do you need? Do you need Fabric? Perhaps not. Perhaps you need Databricks. Do you need Databricks? Not. Perhaps Fabric is enough, or not that they are not equal, because they have both pros and cons. But make a decision, and please don't think of this as a either or, but as a conjunction, as a marriage between Databricks and Fabric. How do we do that together?
I completely agree. And I think one of the big concepts and the things that the company we're helping right now likes about this is the ability to enable someone to self-explore and self-define business rules at the silver layer that can be consumed by the gold or consumed by the by their semantic models, and do it using the same scripting language that the enterprise team uses in Databricks, right? So you can create a Python notebook. You can use SQL in there, but you can use a Python notebook to run off your bronze or silver objects. You can define that business rules, and then that business unit's able to run and test with that for 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever that happens to be. And then when that's finally the like, hey, this is the blessed and certified path, right? They can then take that notebook and hand that over to the enterprise team, and then it can become part of Databricks
Exactly.
with a very low lift on that effort, right?
Then they can get the stamp in the next saying, this is now an approved data set. Please use that for further analytics and value-adding services. So,
Yep. Yeah. And we really like that, especially when we're talking about like either that like enablement to like self-explore, or like there's a lot of like people talk about data mesh, right? Like, hey, I want to enable, like, hey, you're a data owner, so you own the data. You've got a data engineering team that owns and manages all this stuff. You set the definitions because you know when things are changing, right?
yeah.
I love that because it enables therefore a global enterprise team in Databricks
Yes.
to enable a mesh framework where a team's working in Fabric, but then to say, hey, this object that was owned by me, sales, I can take it and I can hand that over to you, global enterprise guy, and you could take it and then own it from there on, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I like the idea of the data mesh approach. With that said, it also requires the organization to be very, very mature on data literacy, on data governance, security, all that kind of stuff. Because if they just say, if the CIO would just say, "Hey, I want data mesh," and no one knows how to do it, sorry, you will just end up in a data mess instead of a data mesh with two S's. So take care of enabling the data mesh before you have tick marked all the preceding tasks of data governance, security, data literacy, all this kind of stuff, and also to try to help the organization understand what is a compute cost in both Databricks and Fabric. What is the capacity? Not that they have to understand it in depth, but just when they click a button to execute something, it costs something on the other side. If you can get there and you can get to now you have the hand on the hot plate and you can't move it when it gets hot because now it's your responsibility to one, handle the data, two, secure the data, and three, govern the data. If you are in a data mesh thing, right? Just like Kevin says, mesh. So yeah.
Well, you say it's less than a mesh, but or maybe a mesh is a greater mess. I don't know exactly where it's going there. Yes. Okay. I think, and LJ is saying, hey, bronze, silver, gold, and Databricks Fabric Platinum is a valid architectural pattern. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
I almost think of it though as a like you would potentially have, what the heck is it when you mix, is it tin, which is bronze and copper mixed together? Whatever it is.
For me, it's just names, and the next name is just more valuable than the first.
Yeah. But I think enrichments can and should be enabled at other layers as well, not just at the gold layer. And so that's the kind of framework I've started to like kind of come up with. I am going to continue to challenge everyone though, and say every company has a data mesh today. They just have no idea what the mesh is and have no line of sight into the mesh. So they've just got a data mesh that's very, very, very messy. The question is, are you going to at least get line of sight into your mesh that may be a mess? Or are you going to leave it behind the covers and leave it in Access databases and leave it in Excel and leave it into manual processes? Or are you going to say, yes, I recognize these things are going on in my organization and I'm blind to it. Today, I'm making a stand and saying, I want to see it dirty, good, bad, whatever it is. I want to see it and I want to enable it in a place where I can at least be aware of it and then take steps to help manage it appropriately. Right. So for all of those, oh, hey, did you know that Cheryl manually does the deposit for payrolls every Wednesday at 4 p.m? Like, and those things are out there, right? There's a Cheryl out there that's manually running a query, looking up Excel databases and going, I guess we should move this amount of money into payroll deposits so that we clear that, right? Like that's happening today.
Yeah, it is.
Right. And we're blind. We're totally blind to it.
While we get reactions on the chat, let me say this, that I totally agree that every organization has data mesh.
Yeah.
They just name it shadow IT or shadow BI.
Yep.
Because it happens.
Yep.
People download Power BI Desktop. People download, I don't know, Python local execution engine, something, and they do stuff.
Yep.
Then they have the enterprise data warehouse. Then they add the traffic signals and the weather, and then they try to forecast the lotto numbers. I don't know, but it is happening, and I've still access to organizations where they have that secret laptop in the corner that no one has to turn off because it does secret stuff.
Right.
That is shadow IT. That's shadow BI. It happens.
Yep.
So, and I totally get it to challenge the head of data, BI, IT, something to say, hey, are you actively saying I don't see this, or are you trying to embrace it and help people to be better tomorrow? On could we as an data enterprise team help you with what you're doing and have a better solution tomorrow? Because then we can begin to help with governance, security, all that kind of stuff.
That's exactly right. And Donald,
when the guy in the corner stops after 25 years in the same organization and that laptop goes dead, what happens?
Right. It's
no one knows.
Critical part of your business. If Cheryl doesn't make that deposit, no one gets paid. Or worse, everybody's check bounces. Right? Holy cow. What is the cost to your organization when no one gets paid on Friday? Right? Like that's a massive cost.
Yeah.
So I like this because it allows people to see what's actually going on in their company if they embrace it and if they're brave enough to say, I want to see what's going on in my company. And I like you kind of have to like not care about what's going on day one, right? Like bring it in and okay, this is what it is, right? Because if you stop, they're just going to find some way, like hook or by crook, they're going to get their job done for a period of time, like you said. But we got to bring it out of the shadows into the light, and then we can work with it. Then we can help people. Then we can get that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think. I think there's a lot of Cheryls in the federal government, and we're going to see a lot of things. We might see a lot of these things break in the coming days.
Things will happen. Let's see what that. But I think the most important thing for the accountable people around this is to not judge when they see things go haywire. Just take it in, accept it, and say, okay, thank you. It's a mess, but let's see if we can change the S to an H and have a mesh instead of. So just embrace it. Don't judge people and just say, hey, I get this. Let me help you be better tomorrow.
I love that. Turn that S to an H and let's clean up this mess. Yeah. So I like that. But yeah, you're exactly right.
You put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
S to H.
Yep. Oh, I like that. Because like that's a big challenge, and I think that's a big part of the conversation of integrating Databricks and Fabric is that understanding and like, hey, this is why we do this, is to bring these capabilities into play.
And it's the same thing if you don't have Databricks, but you have perhaps Snowflake or SQL Server in Azure or on-premise or whatever you're doing.
Right.
It's the same problem still occurs, and the same questions still arise in the organization saying, hey, our end users are asking for Fabric. How do we do that?
Right. And it makes sense that they're asking for it because, I mean, what was like the most, saw a stat, like the most heavily used database product of all time was Excel.
It still is.
Yeah, and yeah, still is. What's number 2? Access. Like,
Yes.
holy crap. Microsoft has really learned from I don't know if you'll call them mistakes or happy accidents or from history, but this is all really kind of part of it. How do we get them off of something that's running on their laptop into something that's working in the cloud and working with people, right?
Exactly. So I think that's perhaps also the sub headline of this conversation that we had, Chris. That yes, we have systems outside of the end user applications, and we need to embrace and open up for a, what you call that in English, a free open path to hand that over to someone, and then they can take care of it, and they can acknowledge saying, yes, we know, we won't judge you, but thank you, let me help you. I think that is perhaps the biggest takeaway. If you take only one thing out of these last 50 minutes, then embrace that you have data mess and try to make it into a mesh.
Yep. I think that's fantastic. And I think the last big thing that we kind of touched on, we touched on this quite a bit before, but I just want to like kind of cross that T, dot that I. It's on security, right? And so being very mindful of how you integrate your security between these environments is important. And I think that's where we have lots of conversations, because like Databricks is all defined, right? Databricks has all the things in there. And now Fabric, when we do the mirror, it doesn't naturally inherit it. Like, how do you enable that security? How can, what patterns are you using, Brian, to enable some of that security in the organization that you're talking with right now?
The first question, no, not the first, but one of the first questions I ask new encounters I have with the organization is, do you have Purview? Because Purview does that for you. Purview is, if you don't know, then the short sentence is, it's the one place to do governance and data breach and data setup in Microsoft. It also embraces the Unity catalog. So if you have Purview, you can define that once in so-called label. That's the new thing, I guess. And then those labels can be propagated down to both Databricks and Fabric.
Shut the front door, really?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I gotta spend some time with Purview. I don't. Okay.
You should have been at the keynote in FabCon Las Vegas last year.
Was that the keynote?
Yeah, but the Purview keynote.
There's a Purview keynote?
Yes, there was a secret Purview keynote. Not on the agenda, but it was just in the keynote room on day 2 or something. A lot of people that were there, and we saw the product owner, I can't remember her name, a very, very bright-minded woman, demoing a new concept of labels in Purview, where you have a label, and on a label you define your security configurations options, like data breach, data exfiltration, data access, something. And then the sum of labels you put on an entity or an object, the Venn diagram, the middle of that Venn diagram is what you are being exposed to as the end user. That's pretty cool. And as Andy says in the chat, and Andy Leonard, thank you, Purview is pretty cool. Yes, it is.
Yeah. So we're gonna have to do a live stream on Purview to get somebody to introduce this and go in depth on
it. You should try to talk to Marte from Oslo. She knows her way around Purview.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'll see. I'll reach out to her and get some more information on that one, because honestly, that's like that's like the biggest challenge that I've had in the conversations of, okay, hey, we recognize we need both. The security's not lining. Well, hang on. That's because you define the security in Databricks, define it in Purview, push that down. It's all you then have to do is just extract those definitions from Databricks, log them into Purview, and then it's going to push out. So
I don't know if it can extract it from Databricks, but that's up for a challenge. I think someone has tried to do it. So But if you don't have
words.
purview, then the question is still the same as it was 5 years ago. When and where are you handling your security setup?
Mhm.
You are doing that at the last layer of access. That's the
Yeah.
gold layer, platinum, tin, lead layer, whatever things are calling it now on the chat. Then you are enabling, you are enforcing, you are configuring data access on that layer, because the preceding layers, perhaps you have data scientists accessing the silver layer. That's quite fine. They have special setups. They always have, right? But 5 years ago, before we had different data platforms, we still had the same problem with security. So
Right.
that problem hasn't gone away just because we have Fabric or because we have a mirror from Databricks or Fabric. It's the same problem. We just have to actively decide where do we configure our security model. Do we do that on the semantic layer, on table layer, on whatever? Where do you, dear organization, where do you want to define your security model?
And that's an excellent point, because we used to have 3 different or 4 different or however many different platforms. Each one had their own layers of security. Just because we have one platform doesn't mean we don't need to have those same layers of security inside of our model or inside of the platform. And that's an excellent point. I love that one, Brian. All right, we are at time. This 56 minutes has just flown by.
Whoa, already.
Yeah, shocking. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, Brian, to come join us and talk with the entire group. And thank everyone for being part of here.
Yeah, I really like the chat comments. It's really amazing to see people being engaged. And thank you, Chris, for having me. It was a pleasure, always.
Oh, well, we'll do this again. We'll definitely do this again.
I'll have you come back.
Kevin's gonna retire soon, so
yeah, it's fine.
Awesome.
Christina on the rolling, so that's
yes, fine. Yeah. We gotta get Christina back. She's just ducking me. I'm kidding. I haven't. Christina, you should come back, please.
Yeah, come back, Christina.
You've got the link. You can hop in literally anytime. You're very welcome. So we are at time. Brian, what parting words of advice would you give to the people who are watching the live stream?
I would say encourage that people have shadow IT and shadow BI, and be open to whatever they bring to you if you're the deciding officer in that team.
I love that. Turn that S into an H.
Exactly.
So. All right. Thanks, everybody. Make sure you connect with Brian over on LinkedIn. Follow his blog. Check out the KQL Kings new tool that he's got out there. And everybody, have a great time at SQL Atlanta. That looks like it's
amazing.
Going to be so much fun. So many people there. So.
And have a great weekend, everyone.
Yeah, you bet. Have the best weekend ever. Peace.
Peace.
Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.